I'd like you to picture a leader I worked with a few years ago. He had done everything right. So he'd read the research, he demonstrated what I would call context-appropriate vulnerability in front of his team. He'd embedded constructive feedback as a regular occurrence. He had done what I would consider to be really good cultural work. So now his team's psychological safety scores were amongst the top in the organisation. But then a major project hit serious trouble and timelines collapsed and pressure spiked. And in the meetings that followed, in the moments that really mattered most, his team went quiet. So he came to me frustrated and a little confused and said, "Errol, I thought we'd built this," referring to psychological safety. "Where did it all go?" That question is what this video is all about. Psychological safety is one of the most important ideas in the history of management thinking. Amy Edmondson's research gave us something genuinely transformative, a language for the relational conditions that make real work possible. And then Google's Project Aristotle reinforced this at scale. Across hundreds of teams, the single biggest predictor of performance wasn't talent, wasn't process, wasn't even individual expertise. It was whether people felt safe to take interpersonal risks. But here is what I keep seeing across corporate and elite sporting environments alike. Teams build psychological safety, not just on paper, but genuine psychological safety, and then watch it evaporate the moment pressure rises. It's like the pressure arrives and the safety that it seemed so real, so tangible, just doesn't survive it. The concept didn't fail us, but the gap between what we built and what performance under pressure actually requires is where I want to spend the next few minutes. There are three very specific misconceptions to the way that psychological safety gets framed. And each one of these actually limits its effectiveness, particularly when the pressure is on. The first one of these is treating it as binary. So either you have it or you don't. But safety exists on a continuum, with dynamics building safety and dynamics sustaining more fear-based behaviors operating simultaneously. In the same room, sometimes in the same conversation. The second misconception is assuming it stays built. Safety isn't a structure you construct and then walk away from. It's like a living system that erodes through the accumulation of small moments. For example, the question that goes unanswered, the eye roll that lasts half a second, the pattern of who gets heard and who doesn't get heard. Safety can be lost by degrees, almost without anyone noticing until the moment it really matters. The third misconception is confusing safety with comfort. Psychological safety allows people to tolerate the discomfort that growth requires. Comfort, on the other hand, is the avoidance of that discomfort altogether. So, when teams mistake one for the other, safety becomes a shield against the rigor that growth requires, rather than a platform for that growth. Leaders who can't distinguish between them end up protecting people from the very experiences that support their development. But underneath these three misconceptions is something even more fundamental. Psychological safety, as it's most commonly framed, is an individual experience. So, do I feel safe to speak up? That places the weight on the individual who's taking the risk, while the system that determines what happens in the moments after they speak goes largely unexamined. Organizations that invest in building courageous individuals without fixing the context that makes courage necessary in the first place. That was the leader in my opening story. He wasn't wrong to build psychological safety. He just built it as something his team was meant to feel, rather than something they were collectively responsible for creating. So what does treating safety as a collective responsibility look like? There are 3 practical shifts we can make. Firstly, read the patterns as system data, not as individual deficits. If the same 2 voices dominate every meeting, that's not a confidence issue. It's a pattern of airtime distribution. If the most important ideas only surface after the meeting, that's not only introversion, it's a signal about who feels safe to contribute. The pattern is telling you something about the cultural infrastructure. Listen to it. The second shift is to make your interactional rules explicit. So, what does productive challenge look like here? Does the most senior person speak last? Is disagreement handled in the room or taken into side conversations? These are not soft agreements. They're like the operating standards that change how risk is distributed across the group. The third shift is to intervene in real time, not in the debrief, not in the next workshop, but in the moment particular dynamics are noticed and felt. For example, when a contribution is overlooked, bring it back. When the tension sends the group into politeness, name or try to name what isn't being said. When someone takes a risk and is subtly shut down, pause and then recalibrate before moving on. These micro interventions send a clear signal. The signal is safety is not the responsibility of the person who spoke. Rather, it is the responsibility of the system they are part of. The leader I described at the start didn't have a psychological safety problem. He had an adaptive safety gap. He'd built something real and assumed that it would hold on its own. What he needed was a framework for continuously creating safety as a team in real time under conditions where it matters most. So from something you build once to something you practice together, from individual courage to collective responsibility. Psychological safety changed the conversation. It's time to take the next step. If this resonates with you, my book, From Fear to Flow, The Adaptive Safety Revolution, goes considerably deeper. The link's below in the description. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.